Welcome, chosen ones. Look closely at the room they built without you in it. Notice how empty it feels, even with everyone still standing there. Funny, isn't it? They spent so long trying to erase you that they forgot to check if erasing you would actually fix anything. It didn't. It never does. Because the moment they decided you needed to disappear, the universe quietly decided something else. It decided them. They called it cancellation. They called it cutting you off. They called it protecting the group, protecting the narrative, protecting their own comfort from the inconvenient truth you carried. They organized the silence. They orchestrated the exclusion. They built a version of events where you were the problem and they were simply cleaning house. And for a while, it worked. For a while, you felt the sting of every group chat you weren't added to, every room that went quiet when you walked in, every invitation that mysteriously never arrived. That was the plan. Isolate the target. Starve them of community. Make them feel so small they forget they were ever seen at all. But here's what they didn't calculate, chosen one. Erasure is not a spell, it's a strategy, and strategies can fail. And this one is failing spectacularly, right in front of them, in real time. Because you didn't disappear. You didn't fade into the background the way they scripted. You went quiet, yes, but quiet is not the same as gone. Quiet was you conserving energy, while they burned theirs, trying to convince a world that was never fully convinced in the first place. And now, chosen one, watch closely, because the very cancellation they orchestrated against you is starting to boomerang back with a force they never prepared for. Before we go further, hit that like button and subscribe. It's a small thing, but it's how you pay this message back to the universe, how you say, I see the pattern, and I'm ready for what comes next. Let's be honest about what a cancellation campaign actually is. It's rarely about facts. It's about fear. Fear that if you kept talking, kept existing, kept being visible, something true would surface that they weren't ready to face. So they didn't attack the truth. They attacked your platform to speak it. They didn't address the substance. They addressed your presence. That's the tell, chosen one. People don't work that hard to silence someone who's wrong. They work that hard to silence someone who's dangerously right. Think about the mechanics of it for a second. A cancellation isn't a single event. It's a campaign, a slow accumulation of small decisions that all point in the same direction. Someone stops replying to your messages the way they used to. Someone starts qualifying every mention of you with a slight edge in their voice. Someone quietly moves a meeting, a gathering, a celebration to a time they know you can't make it, and somehow forgets to mention it happened at all. Each of these moments is small enough to deny individually, but together they form a pattern too consistent to be an accident. That's the architecture of erasure. Death by 1,000 omissions. Imagine a stage crew slowly dimming the lights around one performer while insisting the show looks exactly the same as always. That's what they were doing to you, one small dimmer switch at a time, hoping you wouldn't notice the room going dark around you until it was too late to say anything about it. And here's the part that should sit with you for a moment. A cancellation only works if the target actually vanishes. If they crumble, apologize for things they didn't do, beg to be let back in, or spiral into someone unrecognizable. That was the intended outcome. That was the whole design. But you didn't give them that. You gave them something far more unsettling. You gave them your continued existence, calm, steady, and entirely unbothered by their verdict. And nothing terrifies people who tried to erase someone more than watching that someone keep showing up to their own life, undisturbed. Chosen one, this is where the real story begins. Because right now, behind the scenes, the people who tried to write you out of the narrative are starting to realize the narrative doesn't need their permission to continue, and it's not going the way they hoped. Let me ask you something before we dive in. If you're really ready to understand exactly how this cancellation attempt is turning into their own disappearing act, then prove it. Drop a 77 in the comments so the universe knows you're paying attention. That number isn't decoration. It's a signal that you're not here for comfort, you're here for the truth. And if you want to keep this mission alive, bless the team with a super thanks on your screen. Every gift fuels the force behind these messages. And now, we go step by step. If you're truly one of the chosen, you'll feel that pull to stay until the final word. Let's begin. Number 1. The erasure that exposed who was actually afraid. Nothing reveals fear faster than watching someone build an entire campaign just to avoid one honest conversation. Chosen one, they didn't try to cancel you because you were wrong. They tried to cancel you because you were inconvenient. Wrong people get corrected. Inconvenient people get erased. That's the distinction they hoped you'd never notice. If your presence was truly meaningless, they wouldn't have needed meetings, whisper networks, and carefully worded messages designed to turn a room against you. Meaningless people don't require that much effort to remove. You did, and that effort is the confession they never meant to make. Every plan they built to push you out was really just a monument to how much they feared what you already knew. Think about the sheer energy required to keep a story consistent across dozens of conversations, to make sure everyone stays on message, to manage the small leaks and contradictions that keep threatening to surface. That's not the behavior of people dealing with a nobody. That's the behavior of people managing a threat. Ask yourself, why does removing someone insignificant require this much choreography? Why does silencing someone harmless demand this much coordination? It doesn't. Nobody builds a fortress around nothing, and somewhere inside them, even if they'd never say it out loud, they know it. Every ounce of effort they spent trying to make you smaller is proof of how large you actually were in their world. Number 2. The silence that was never surrender. They mistook your quiet exit for defeat. It was never defeat. It was strategy. When they excluded you, you didn't fight for a seat at a table that had already decided to burn itself down. You simply stepped back and let them sit in the room they built. What they didn't expect was how loud that empty chair would become. Every time your name came up and the room shifted uncomfortably, that was the silence working. Every time someone asked, "Wait, where did they go?" that was the silence working. You didn't need to defend yourself in a room designed to convict you, regardless of the evidence. You let the absence speak, and absence, chosen one, is a language liars have never learned to translate. Silence doesn't argue, doesn't plead, doesn't offer up material to be twisted into more evidence against you. It simply exists, undeniable and impossible to spin. Imagine trying to argue with an empty chair, trying to build a case against someone who never shows up to defend or attack. There's nothing to grab onto, nothing to react to, nothing to distort. And the longer it stretches, the heavier it becomes, until the people who created it are the ones left uncomfortable in its presence, not you. Why does an empty room feel so much louder than a crowded one when your name is the one being whispered in it? Because silence forces people to fill the space with their own guilt, and guilt is a far worse roommate than you ever were. Number 3. The narrative they built that started eating its own foundation. A lie only survives if nobody asks the follow-up question. And eventually, someone always does. The story they told about you required maintenance, constant repetition, constant reinforcement, constant recruitment of new believers to keep it alive. But stories built on a mission are fragile things. The moment someone asked a slightly deeper question, but what actually happened, the whole structure started to wobble. You didn't need to correct the record loudly. You just needed to keep living a life that didn't match the caricature they painted. And every day you did that, the gap between their story and your reality widened until it became impossible to ignore. New people entering that circle started noticing the mismatch first, the ones without years of investment in the old version of events. They'd hear the rumor, then meet the person, and something wouldn't add up. That quiet confusion is the beginning of every narrative's collapse. One small inconsistency at a time. Picture a house built on sand at low tide. It looks solid enough while the water's out, sturdy enough to fool a passerby. But tides always come back in, chosen one, and no amount of decorating the walls changes what's underneath the foundation. And here's what makes it worse for them. Every person who repeated their version of you had to keep performing conviction they didn't fully feel, because somewhere underneath the story, doubt was already forming. Maintaining a lie is exhausting, in a way maintaining truth never is. Truth doesn't need rehearsal. It doesn't need a group chat reminding everyone to stay consistent before a gathering. It just sits there quietly, unbothered, waiting to be noticed. Meanwhile, they're the ones scrambling to remember which version of events they told to which person, and that kind of scrambling always eventually shows on the surface. Number 4. The group that needed a villain more than they needed the truth. Communities under stress often look for someone to blame instead of something to fix. You became convenient, not because you caused the dysfunction, but because pointing at you was easier than admitting the dysfunction existed long before you arrived. That's the ugly secret behind most cancellations. They're rarely about justice. They're about relief. Relief from having to examine the deeper rot, quietly festering underneath everyone's smiles. And here's the twist they didn't see coming. Removing you didn't remove the rot. It just removed the only person who was honest enough to name it. Every unresolved tension that existed before you were ever blamed for anything is still sitting there, untouched, waiting for the next opportunity to surface. And it will surface, because problems don't disappear just because the scapegoat did. Ask yourself why they still argue about the same things they argued about before you ever showed up. Ask why the same personalities still clash, the same resentments still simmer, the same old wounds still bleed through every gathering. Because you were never the wound, chosen one. You were just the one who kept pointing at it. Number 5. The moment they realized cancellation doesn't come with a warranty, they thought erasing you would restore peace. Instead, the same conflicts, the same tension, the same dysfunction they blamed on you started resurfacing without you anywhere near it. And that's when the panic set in. Quiet at first, then louder. If removing you was supposed to fix everything, why does everything still feel broken? Why does the group still fracture over the same old patterns? Why does the peace they promised themselves keep slipping through their fingers? Because you were never the disease, chosen one. You were the only one willing to say the disease had a name. Now, without you there to blame, they're forced to sit with the discomfort of realizing the problem was never external. It was always structural, always internal, always something no amount of exclusion could ever solve. Imagine buying a product with a lifetime guarantee, only to find out the fine print never actually covered the one thing you needed it to fix. That's their cancellation campaign. All promise, no protection, and the return policy has quietly expired. Number 6. The applause that turned into an awkward silence. In the beginning, some of them celebrated. A few even congratulated each other for finally, quote, dealing with you. But applause fades fast when the results don't arrive. Weeks passed, then months, and the version of peace they promised each other never showed up. Instead, new cracks appeared. New betrayals surfaced. New whispers started circulating about who might be next. The same energy they once aimed at you started turning inward, and now they're discovering something painful. Once a group learns how easy it is to cancel someone, it never really stops. It just looks for its next target, and some of them are starting to wonder if that target is closer than they think. That nervous energy, the careful way people in that circle now watch what they say, the sudden caution around certain topics, that's the residue of what they did to you, quietly reshaping how they treat each other now. Why does everyone suddenly choose their words more carefully? Why does laughter in that group feel thinner than it used to? Because they built a machine that only knows how to consume, and machines like that never stop running just because the first meal is finished. Number 7. The evidence they can't control anymore. A cancellation campaign depends on controlling the story before anyone can question it. But time is a terrible ally for people relying on selective memory. Small inconsistencies start to surface. Someone remembers a detail that doesn't fit the official version. Someone mentions, almost by accident, a moment where you were kind when the story claimed you were cruel. These cracks don't need a courtroom, they just need time. And time, chosen one, is quietly on your side while it works against theirs. Every month that passes adds another data point that doesn't match their narrative. Another person who quietly starts to wonder if they got the story wrong. Another small thread that, pulled far enough, unravels the whole thing. Think of it like a tapestry woven with a few threads deliberately left loose. It looks fine from a distance, but pull just one loose thread and the whole pattern starts to shift shape. They wove that tapestry in a hurry, and hurried work always leaves a thread exposed somewhere. And once one person tugs at it, out of curiosity, out of guilt, out of simple boredom with the old story, the rest of the room starts to notice the shape underneath was never quite what they were told. Number 8. The isolation they didn't expect to inherit. They thought excluding you would tighten their bond, unite them against a common target. Instead, without a shared enemy to distract them, they started noticing each other's flaws more clearly. The tension that used to be aimed at you started finding new directions, new arguments, new fractures within the very circle that once felt so unified against you. Isolation has a strange habit of boomeranging. The people who cast someone out often find themselves, one by one, being quietly cast out next. The same mechanisms they used against you, the whisper networks, the selective silence, the subtle exclusion, are still active in that group. They just don't control who those mechanisms point at anymore. Ask yourself, what happens to a weapon once its original target is gone? It doesn't disappear, it gets pointed somewhere new. And right now, inside that circle, someone else is starting to feel the same chill you once felt, wondering why the room suddenly went quiet the second they walked in. A group that bonds over exclusion never really learns unity. It only learns rotation, and rotation always eventually lands close to home. Number 9. The version of you they can no longer access. Cancellation only works on people who need the group's approval to feel whole. And somewhere in this process, you stopped needing that. You built a life, a peace, a stillness that doesn't depend on being let back into a room that was never safe in the first place. That's the part that truly unsettles them now. It's not that you're angry, it's that you're simply unreachable in a way they can't understand. They can't offer you an apology you're waiting for, because you're not waiting for one. They can't punish you with more exclusion, because exclusion stopped being a threat the day you found peace outside their walls. And that peace, quiet, ordinary, unspoken, is the one thing their entire campaign was never built to survive. Why does your calm bother them more than your anger ever could? Because anger means you still want back in. Calm means you've already built somewhere better, and there's no invitation you're waiting on to make it feel complete. Number 10. The whispers that turned into confessions nobody wanted to make. Somewhere along the way, someone in that circle started to feel guilty. Maybe they saw how far the story had strayed from the truth. Maybe they realized how much they'd exaggerated just to fit in with the group's narrative. Guilt doesn't stay quiet forever, chosen one. It leaks. It shows up in nervous laughter when your name comes up. It shows up in defensive over-explaining nobody asked for. It shows up in small, quiet confessions whispered to the wrong person at the wrong time. And those whispers are already spreading further than they realize. Guilt is not a controllable substance. Once it exists in a group, it moves from person to person like a current looking for ground. Picture a single crack in a dam, small enough to ignore at first, easy enough to patch over with a smile and a change of subject. But water doesn't respect denial. It finds the crack, and it keeps finding it, again and again, until the pressure behind it has nowhere left to go. Number 11. The reckoning that doesn't need your involvement. Here's the part that should bring you real peace. You don't have to do anything for this to keep unfolding. You don't need to expose them, correct them, or even acknowledge them. The consequences of building a narrative on convenience instead of truth were always going to catch up eventually. That's simply how unstable foundations behave under pressure. You can walk forward, live your life, build your peace, and the reckoning will still complete itself without requiring a single ounce of your energy. This is the part that separates real vindication from petty revenge. Revenge requires your participation. Reckoning doesn't need you in the room at all. Ask yourself, which one actually sounds like freedom? The one where you're still tangled up in their story, trying to prove a point, or the one where you're already gone, already living, while their own choices quietly settle the score on your behalf. Number 12. The disappearing act that's actually theirs now. They wanted the story to be about your erasure. Instead, watch what's actually happening. Their credibility is thinning, their unity is cracking, their certainty is wavering every time new information surfaces that doesn't match what they told everyone. They built a stage designed to make you vanish, and somehow they're the ones losing their footing on it. That's the quiet justice nobody announces. It just happens, slowly, steadily, undeniably, while you're somewhere else entirely, no longer watching, no longer waiting, no longer needing to know how it ends. Imagine the spotlight they built to expose you slowly swinging around on its own, landing instead on the hands that built it. That's not a metaphor for revenge, chosen one. That's just what happens when a stage is built on a lie. Eventually, the light finds its way back to the source. Number 13. The chosen one who was never actually gone. And here we are, chosen one, at the truth underneath everything. You were never erased. You simply stopped performing for people who never deserved a front row seat to your life. What looks like disappearance from where they're standing is actually distance. The kind of distance that only comes from someone who finally understood their worth wasn't up for a group vote. They tried to cancel you, and in trying, they revealed exactly who they were underneath the performance. Now, while they're left untangling the mess they made trying to erase you, you're already somewhere else entirely, building, healing, becoming. Ask yourself one final question. If you were truly erased, why does your name still come up in every room you're no longer in? Why does your absence still shape every conversation you're not a part of? Erasure fades, legacy doesn't. And chosen one, that's not disappearing. That's the opposite. That's arriving. If this message spoke to you, hit that like button, subscribe, drop the number 77 in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.